Good fine morning, ladies and gentlemen, as it was morning time when I was recording this. I am Kyle Perkino, and today I'm going to do my first ever tutorial video, namely about how to rig an Age of the Ring 8.0 Easterling model to a new skeleton in Blender 2.93. Before we begin, I want to say that the only part of this I did was the crossbow right here, named X-bow, as in crossbow. And everything else in this model was done by Mathijs, the project leader of the development of Age of the Ring modification for Battle for Middle-earth 2 expansion pack Rise of the Witch King, for those of you who are newcomers to this type of stuff. And yeah, let the guidance begin. So, what you do is, first you want to get the easy stuff, and by that I mean the stuff that only requires to be attached to one bone each, out of the way, and we're going to start with the helmet here. So you left click the helmet, and then you go shift and left click the armature or skeleton, which in this case is named IUCRS bow MN_SKL. And then you go Control P, and then you scroll down to with automatic weights, left click, and then you go Shift, left click the helmet, and then you go into this green upside down triad, and then you click hitting this remove vertex group button. It's the minus button, until you get the bone you want, which in this case is bat_head. Just keep deleting until you have only bat_head left. Then you switch from object mode way up here to weight paint. And then you go Shift Z to get like a transparent grid view. Then you go to weights, and you go to limit total, for reasons that are explained in the W3D plugin page from OpenSage that there is a link for in the description box. You go limit 2. And then you go up here to, and then you tap this, bat head, and then you click this, the vertices thing, and then you hit select box, and down here you have to make sure it says box select and not move object. Then you hit A to select all, but it's all already selected, but I want you to know these keys. So yeah, A, and then hit assign, so that the entire helmet is completely attached to bat_head. And then you go Shift Z. And you may want to save your progress along the way. You just do that with Control S. Or Command S if you're operating a MacBook Pro or other iMac and therefore are reliant on parallels to get Windows programs like Battle for Middle-earth and Age of the Ring onto your computer. Next we're going to go do this, where is it? Head. We're going to do that. Some parts are so small that you're going to have to go into scene collection in order to follow this tutorial correctly, or in order to do this process correctly. And then, unless you feel like zooming in to select, you can always do that as like the other option. Oh yeah, it's shift, click, left click. And then, just like with the helmet, you keep deleting bones until you're left with nothing but the head. Oops, that's a bit too far. Until you're left with the head bone. You'll see bat head is still selected. Just hit that. A in case it's not all selected. Assign. And you want the weight to be at the maximum strength it's capable of. So object mode. I said object mode. There we go. Sometimes my laptop can get a little bit topsy-turvy. Because it's only 4 gigs of RAM with only 3.5 usable, so yeah, oops. What you do next is you go to the stuff that only needs 2 or 3 bones to it. So what you do, we're going to start that with the piece that's called shawl, because it's easily selectable and it only requires attachment to 2 bones, head and chest. So what we're going to do, weight paint, transparent, do this bat head, and this has to be highlighted in the really pale teal aqua outlight. Do this, and then assign, boom, and then go down here for chest, and then select all, remove, and then you want to go to side view in this case, and then go like that, and then assign. You turn around twice to make sure everything's as intended. And if you want, you could even put these bones to simultaneously rig to the head bone and chest bone. And then what you do is you repeat that with the neck mesh, or sub-object as some may call it. You want to make sure you don't accidentally select any other meshes, aka sub-objects, like I just did. And keep deleting. Then you have weight paint, and you have head. I'm going to start with head, all attached to that. Then we're going to go back down to chest, and we're going to only attach the bottommost bones to chest because you don't want to stretch out the mesh too terribly much. And then what you do, you just keep repeating that process until what you do here is you go up a sort of ladder of number of bones needed. Like for these shoulder guard things, for example, you just attach them to the bones that are up here. You want to make sure it's completely attached, this one. And then since this is not for this bone, you go remove for this half of the mesh. And you deactivate that. Click on the bone, reactivate. Then you go assign, make sure all vertices are attached to the bone. Make sure none of these ones are. And Velveto. You have the result you want for the shoulder guards. And I forgot to mention, this is another 1 bone mesh right here, the pouch. This has only 1 bone it needs, and that's the pelvis. Now the pelvis can be a little bit difficult to find with the Isengard Uruk-hai crossbowman armature, but you know, we found it, and you won't quite get it the first try. Sometimes you'll have to like go like that and then click on the bone you need, but if you're zoomed in to the amount, to the extent that works best for you, then assuredly you will get it as intended. This next one, Van Braces, is a 3-bone mesh. 1 bone for each 1, 2, 3, so third of this mesh. What we're doing here is right forearm, left forearm, and chest. So weight paint, and then transparency time, and then bat chest. Make sure this part of the mesh is the only part attached. Then you want this, the right forearm guard. When you have armor as a separate mesh from the soldier, you're always going to want to make sure the armor bones are attached, or excuse me, armor meshes are attached to the closest and most proper bones for them. Pardon me. Same with thighs and shins here, HAO1 as it's called. So HAO1, HAO1, this is a 2-bone mesh, because it's only 2 parts, the left thigh guard and the right thigh guard. What you do, thigh R, and you make sure the whole dang thing is attached and not just these top 7 scales, like so. And then assign, and then deactivate, and then back to object mode. It may seem a bit of a tedious process, but once you complete it, the results are gratifying. I guarantee it. So yeah, with shins, I renamed them shins. The mesh's real name is Object 57. You don't have to rename these sub-objects. I just do that because it makes assigning these Age of the Ring models to new skeletons a much easier task for me personally. Alright, since it's already highlighting the L, let's just go with the L first and assign. Boom. Boom. Yeah, never trust a mesh to be fully attached to the proper bone for it. Always make sure you're verifying, so to speak. Next, we're going to do the crossbow. And this crossbow is actually, again, the only part of it that I made. And you can buy digital copies of it at my Renderhub page if you want to support this tutorial, this channel, or the sub-mod that most of my channel is all about showing off. Yeah, so what you do, get the crossbow, make sure you delete any bones that do not contain the phrase CRS bow. And then go to weight paint, and you do this, BR crossbow. We're just going to attach the whole thing to CRS bow, and then we're going to, fun fact, in Blender you can hit the numpad, the far right A up key to go up, and the equivalent 2 and down key to go down in Blender. And then what we do is this. So far, so self-explanatory it may seem. Yeah. So that about does it for the crossbow mesh. That is, again, the only mesh that was made from scratch by yours truly. The rest of it was made from scratch by Mathijs and the Age of the Ring crew, including this hip and pelvis and legs mesh that we're gonna rig next. So we're gonna delete all the crossbow bones, the arm bones, the hair, head, and chest, and make sure we're leaving only the thighs, calves, toes, and pelvis. Weight paint. Uh-oh. I'm having that problem that I warned about earlier. There we go. Told you it could happen. It just happened to me right in front of all of you all. This top edge is probably the only part you need to attach to the pelvis bone, which is sometimes, not always, but sometimes named root dummy. Which, before you ask, no, I do not know why it's called root dummy. Just some bone name that EA Games made up, I suppose. But again, you check all the angles, make sure it's how you need it. And the principle is basically the same thing in a very symmetrical manner with the left thigh bone. Then down here you go to attach the calf bones. Boom. And what I usually do is I start here and I go all the way down to, see these 3 dots down here? It's what I do to make sure I'm not accidentally attaching the feet. It's like the limit, self-imposed limit, you know, as to how far down to go when box selecting. Sometimes it'll say like move mesh or whatever it says. You'll have to check down here periodically to make sure you don't have to click here to say select box to switch it back to select box. And then let's get the toes going. Boom. And like from here down for the toe bones in this particular case, obviously, like this is just the general, like my selection to do this with these repeater crossbow guys, who are going to be called the bow masters in game, by the way. That's going to be, like, obviously the mesh names are going to vary by which Easterling model you put in. Even the textures for them are going to vary, and this is actually a modified texture I did. It's a cross between the two basic Easterling textures, MUN East A and MUN East B. I just made a third one in that series, called it MUN East C, and I did it by merging elements from the first two and dyeing all the cloth purple except the gloves. I dyed those blue to make an MUN East C. But for this one, you're going to need those arm and hand bones and the chest. Do not delete those. And since there's no cape bones here, we're going to single out the thigh bones as being the only leg bones that we really need. And let's make sure. Okay, good. And then what you do here is you select this. Boom. This bar-shaped horizontal rectangle of a selection is what goes to the pelvis bone, or root dummy as it's sometimes known. Then up here, you highlight the abdominals, these areas. You go up here, and then this, and then this, and then that. And optionally, you can include these, like have a little bit of triangle up here. Be like, boom, check it at all angles, make sure it's as intended, and I had no intention of this being excluded, so we're going to throw that into the mix. I also had no intention of this being excluded either, so that's going into the mix too. This is why you want to check these things on a 360-degree angled way, is to make sure everything's attaching good and proper. And this you highlight. You might not want to do as I did, because you might accidentally select this bone here, or vertex, sorry. And then you just, from there to here is what you want for the right upper arm for any Easterling mesh thing, any new the Ring Easterling unit, for like sub-modding needs. And then from here to here is generally what I do for the right forearm. And you have the right hand. It looks pretty well attached, but looks can sometimes be deceiving, which is why we're going to do the whole remove and, in this case, reassign thing for the hand bone. And then we're going to imitate that in a very symmetrical manner on the right, or excuse me, left upper arm, left forearm, left forearm, and left hand. Yeah, left hand. There you go. Yeah. What else? Oh, yeah. Oop, hip rotator, accidentally hit that. Lastly, the thighs for the sash here is gonna... Oops. There we go. You want to make sure it's attached properly. And what I like to do to make the sash move like a really authentic sash is I like to make sure that the sash is shared by the two thigh bones. You don't have to do that, but you know, you're encouraged to. Boom. And then check that. And then go like this, and then boom, and then looks pretty good. Then you zoom out, and yes. And then, once you got your bounding box all set, which I already did in advance, which you're going to need to use the scale tool and scale it up 75%. The way you do that is, I'll just act that out even though I already did it. You go like this, and then you do that again and again for all the other. And then you do that again and again. No, you do that twice for the different angles. And now that we got our crossbow guy all set, I must go refresh my own memory of what the heck I called these guys in the terms of like the model name. Evil faction units, rune, and then where is he? Golden Arbalist, even though that's not what they're going to be called. They're going to be called Bowmaster. And then MU Bowmast. Okay. And sometimes you'll remember to code in the model name before you assign it to your model, and sometimes it'll be in the reverse order. In my case, it was in the reverse order. No, it wasn't. It was in the order I described. That was wrong with me. Still, and then you want to make sure the skeleton is already in there, which in my case it is. If not, you have to copy the existing skeleton from the game, which if you can't, then you have to use Final Big to extract from the game. And then copy the skeleton and armature and paste it into the art folder. Use existing skeleton right there. You always want to make sure it's in the same folder with the model name, which in my case, MU Bowmast _SKN. And then export, and sometimes it'll abort export for reasons that are usually to do with the number of bones per vertice. And what you do is you just cut that down to 2 whenever it's 3 or more. You just, whenever that happens. In my case, it went completely smoothly. I think that had to do with my conscience letting myself know that I'm doing a tutorial video for all of you. And, oh wow, that was a bit short for a tutorial. 25 minutes ain't that bad. So, yeah. Thank you all for watching, and please like and favorite this video. Subscribe to the channel with all alerts on. Is the tiny little bell right next to the subscribe button. And what else? Oh yeah, and if you want to use exactly this crossbow, then don't forget to purchase a digital copy of it on Renderhub. It comes in the OBX and did I really just say that? OBJ and FBX formats. It's really not that big in file size, which means it'll be extremely easy to import into Blender as either an FBX or a wavefront, and to convert, export as a Westwood W3D, which Westwood W3D, those are the only models that the game acknowledges, the only models or meshes that the game ever acknowledges. So you are going to need the Westwood 3D plugin for Blender, which OpenSage has. I have a link to OpenSage page for that in the description box, as I said. And yeah, I'm stepping over my intended time. So enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, bye.